Was it really that easy to slip into that neo-Nazi movement? Did it just happen gradually? Did you realize what was going on?
I really didn't. It was very gradual. I was already hanging out in the punk rock movement, and I started hanging out with these skinhead kids. And then when the skinhead movement split into two factions, the area where I was at, the kids started going more and more into white power, and I easily drifted right in there with them.
Mm-hmm. Did you accept the philosophy, or just look to belong as a kid, as a young person?
I think at first it was a sense of belonging. I started to adopt the philosophy. I mean, I grew up in Southern California in a town called Fontana.
Sure.
And Fontana is known really for two things: the headquarters for the Southern California Ku Klux Klan and the birthplace of the Hells Angels biker gang. So there was a lot of that underlying white supremacy already in the town.
Mm-hmm. What was your deepest time? I mean, how far did you rise up to? Were you just a member? Did you rise up to a position of authority and respect, or what?
I was a regional recruiter. My job was to recruit kids and bring them into the movement. My job was to do everything I could to cause tension, cause dissension, to cause mayhem in the city, and get kids to join. And I did a lot of different things by pitting kids against each other. I'd go to a school and hit it with literature, hoping that the Black, Hispanic, and Asian kids would get mad at white kids and start attacking them, and then we could come in and look like the saviors and the good guys and protect the white kids.
Wow. Were you good at it?
Sadly, yes, I was pretty good at it.
What was the worst thing you ever did?
I think the worst thing I ever did was beat people and then use words. People think that's kind of weird when I say that, but if you attack somebody or you rob somebody and you beat them and you don't say anything about them, those bruises go away, and sometimes those people just forget about the incident. But if you beat somebody and you call them a racial slur, or you call them something about their sexual orientation, or their religion, that sticks with them forever. Mm-hmm. And they're always going to have that fear. And I think that's probably the worst thing I've ever done in my life.
T.J. Leyden, former skinhead who renounced racism and now preaches a message of tolerance, is speaking at West Virginia State University tomorrow at 11 o'clock at the Davis Fine Arts Building on the Institute campus. When did the light go off for you?
I think, everything started to change once I had children of my own. I started seeing my boys at a very, very young age. An incident happened, and hopefully everybody will show up tomorrow and hear my entire story, but an incident happened where my son at 3 years old turned the television off and scolded me, and actually used a racial slur when he was scolding me. And I started thinking about where this 3-year-old was going to be in 15 years. I mean, I didn't grow up with that in my house, and I was putting that into his brain at a very young age. And I already knew guys that were second generation, and I knew where they were going. Most second generation gang members and white supremacists, the vast majority of them end up in state institutions and state prisons. Mm-hmm. And I wanted something more for my kids. I wanted my kids to achieve something better than I did in my life, and I really had to take a look at my life. And over the next 18 months, I did a lot of soul searching, and then I finally decided that I had to get away from this thing.
So it was gradual. It wasn't. I mean, that was a defining moment, but still there were ebbs and flows over the next year and a half.
Yes, yeah, there was a lot of different things that happened. There was times when I said, "Oh, this is why I should stay," and then there's other times when I said, "Man, I got to run like hell from this place." So there was a lot of ups and downs.
What was the actual moment? I mean, do you actually walk away from that moment, from that movement? I mean, how do you?
No. No.
I mean, they don't say, okay. They don't say, okay, TJ, listen, thanks. It was great having you, and stay in touch. It's not like that.
Yeah, no. It's not like, hey, if you're in the area, give us a call.
Right.
No. To this day, I still receive death threats. I just had my home address less than a month ago put on the internet. My wife emailed me 2 days ago when I left to go up in Ohio right now. I just did a university up here. And she said, and she showed me a picture, less than 2 blocks away from our house on a main street, there's a giant swastika that was just painted on the middle of the street with a code underneath it. And we know what the code means and everything else, and it's people telling us, we know where you're at again. So, I have to up my security. I have to, take precautions, and my family has to also now.
Was your wife in the movement?
My ex-wife was. My current wife is not, and she's and she has made my life incredible.
Mm-hmm. T.J. Leyden is with us, former skinhead, former neo-Nazi, who has renounced racism and now has a message of tolerance, which he'll be delivering tomorrow at 11 o'clock at West Virginia State University in the Davis Fine Arts Building, and telling that compelling story. When you got out, so it wasn't easy to get out. And what were but when you got out, what were your first steps? I mean, was that when your life was turned around, or you had to sort of fight your way back?
When I got out, I left the racism behind, but my biggest problem was I still had this. I had this, like, I guess don't look bad at me. Don't look. I still had that whole mentality of, like, I still had power, I still had control, and if you looked at me funny, I was going to attack you. So I went through some therapy. My mom suggested one day that I go to this place called the Simon Wiesenthal Center and its Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles. And this is a Jewish human rights center. And I looked at my mom like she was smoking crack that morning. I mean, seriously, Mom, this is a Jewish human rights center. I'm an ex-Nazi. And Jews and Nazis aren't talking and hanging out on Friday night, But she kept pushing me. I mean, my mom, I tell people my mom's going to live forever because she can bug God, and God's going to keep her down here as long as he can. To get her off my back, I contacted the center. And I thought, this human rights center was going to say, we don't want to talk to you. You're an ex-Nazi. Get away. Actually, Richard Eaton, the senior researcher there, asked me to come in and meet with him. So I said, okay. And I brought everything I had for 15 years, all my racist stuff, and I gave it to him. And I think he was just shocked. And then 2 file cabinets full, boxes full of stuff, pictures, flags, daggers, videos, everything I had. And they started going through it, and then they asked me if I would help them go through it, and I did, and I spent 2.5 weeks there. And I also talked to some federal, state, and local law enforcement officers, and I thought I did my great deed for society. I told the Jewish Human Rights Center what's going on, told the cops what's going on. I'm going to fade away. But eventually they asked me to come back and if I would actually go to work for them and speak out. And I said I would on one condition, though, and that one condition was I had to talk to the youth. I had to talk to these guys as target audience, who they were trying to recruit. And I started August 12th of 1996, and I haven't shut up since.
What's your message?
My message is that I want people to try to understand people of different races, cultures, and religions. But I also want people to stop being silent, indifferent, and complacent. And what I mean by that is I want people to stop being sick. So many people hear a racist joke, hear a bigoted comment. They turn their back when somebody's being physically or verbally abused, and they walk away. And when they do that, they don't realize that they're just as much at fault for allowing that to happen as the person's doing it. That's why I say don't be silent, indifferent, and complacent, and stand up. And if we start doing that, I think the world's just going to be a better place.
So give me a tool for what a lot would consider the most innocent example. You're in a group of 3 guys, 2 of them are your best friends, and somebody says, hey, there's a black and a Jew and a Catholic in an airplane with 2 parachutes. I mean, what do you say? And
I'm going to say, I'll tell them straight out, are you going to be able to say this, in front of our Jewish friend? You're going to say it in front of our black friends? Is this joke one of those jokes, or is it just because there's us 3 white guys sitting here that it's okay? Because it's not going to be okay with me.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is. And a lot of my friends will say, you know what, TJ, I'll say this joke in front of Rick. I'll say this joke in front of Mark. And they're Jewish and black, and I'll say, okay, when they get here, you can tell the joke. And sometimes and they're able to tell the joke because it's not off color. It doesn't have any derogatory parts in it. If it's about it's about Catholics and Irish kids, I'm like, okay, let's hear it, because it's probably, sadly, some of it's probably true.
T.J. Leyden is with us, former skinhead. What did you do about your ink? You were probably inked up pretty good, weren't you?
I was. I went through. I was doing laser tattoo removal, and I was doing that until I developed skin cancer. And when I developed skin cancer, the doctors told me I had to stop because it actually removed the pigment from my skin. I was one of those 10% of the people that had that luck, that it literally removed my pigment, and I developed skin cancer. So I had to stop doing that, and then had to start covering them up. And it's a lot more expensive, believe it or not, to have them covered up than have them tattoo removed.
Wow. So you still have a lot of ink you have to cover up.
I have one major section that I want to cover up, and once that's done, I will actually have all my white supremacy tattoos finally covered up.
Where's that one that you still have to cover?
It's skin down the back of my arms.
Yeah.
I had skinhead down the back of my arms, and my wife actually wanted me to have the skin part covered up, but I literally told her I'm not going to walk around with head on one arm, so we had to do it the other way around.
TJ, what's obviously you have not been in the movement for some time, but you know it pretty well. How serious is the neo-Nazi movement in this country right now?
Well, I'll say, and I'll put it to you this way. The last 8 years, the white supremacy movement has exploded. The Internet has helped them, music, video games, and they're getting pushed to a point where, they talk about that they're 2% of the world's population, and they need to fight back. And they're not talking about fighting back with their fists. They're saying that if they can't have a full-blown revolution, that and they can't. They know they don't have the numbers to have like a straight-up war. That they're talking about stuff as far as like, sadly, Oklahoma, the World Trade Center, things of that nature.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the leaders of the white supremacy movement said he wishes that he had some guys that had the testosterone fortitude to fly major aircraft into buildings.
It's I mean, is it that it's hard to even fathom that much hate. I mean, I've seen you on some of the programs you've done, and I'm familiar with some of the things you've said and some of this eyewitness stuff. It's just hard to imagine the magnitude of the hate. It really is. I'm not being naive. It's just
No. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. I think a lot of people think of the old Klan.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think, they're going to go out in the pasture, they're going to burn crosses, they're going to yell white power, and they may lynch somebody. Okay, that's not the way these guys see it anymore. These guys see, bombing buildings. They see blowing up, places. They see, killing, walking into a Sikh temple and shooting as many people as they can. I mean, that's the kind of stuff these guys think about. I can give you, sadly, a dozen incidents where these guys have done things like that. Starting from Oklahoma and working its way up to, present day. These guys, the Sikh temple was, 6 dead. We had a gentleman, I shouldn't call him a gentleman, a guy walked into a Jewish daycare center in Southern California and shot 5 children under the age of 13. And then drove up the street and killed a Filipino postal worker. These are kind of things that go on. These are the kind of things these guys think about in today's white supremacy world.
TJ Leyden is with us, former skinhead, former neo-Nazi, gave it up years ago, now travels the country preaching a message of tolerance. He's going to be at West Virginia State University tomorrow at 11 o'clock at the Davis Fine Arts Building, and it's going to be very compelling stuff. You're probably familiar with a late white supremacist we had in West Virginia, William Pierce with the National Alliance, who had a place in West Virginia for years. He's dead now, but he was head of the National Alliance movement and wrote a lot and lived in West Virginia, of all places. But
yes, Dr. William Pierce, who he was a doctor of physics, wrote the book, The Turner Diary.
Right.
And which actually was the inspiration for Timothy McVeigh to blow up Oklahoma City. Dr. William Pierce was one of the most key members of the white supremacy movement, and when he passed away, it really, left a rift in the white supremacy movement. And there's been a lot of infighting about who's going to take over. They've had 2 leaders that have taken over the National Alliance, and thank goodness both of them are nowhere near, his mental capacity, and they've slowly been running it into the ground, and I hope they continue to keep running it into the ground, because that was a very powerful organization in West Virginia. and slowly but surely it's diminishing, and that's a good thing for everybody.
Is the neo-Nazi movement? I would think that there's this gets into a real touchy area, and I'll kind of end with this though. Is that there is always a fair amount by a lot of people, me included, of kind of a mistrust of the federal government and an animosity toward the federal government. That's one thing. I mean, there's a difference though between a healthy skepticism and a healthy questioning of the federal government, and a virulent animosity towards the government that, if it goes too far, tips over into some of these movements. You follow where I'm going with that?
Oh yes, I mean, you go. I always tell people, having a healthy skepticism of the U.S. government, of your state government, your local government, that's important. You should question everything your government does. That's our right under the First Amendment. That's our right as American citizens to question everybody in authority and ask them why you did that, because we need those answers. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? The thing is, when you get people out there that are protesting and screaming, yelling, and hollering that the government is the problem, and you're a parent, you need to talk to your child and say, look, I'm doing this because I believe this is part of the government that's wrong, but, this part of the government is good. When you got people out there that's yelling that everything's bad about the government, when I was in the movement, I was looking for those people. And then I'm going to walk over to their kids and I'm going to say, you know what, your dad's right. This government is corrupt, but you know what, he doesn't know why. And every kid wants to be smarter than their parents. And then you bring up, it's this, it's the Jews who control the government. It's this group that controls the government. It's that group that controls the government. And then that kid thinks, you know what, yeah, I'm smarter than my parents. And now he thinks he's got one up on you. And you've just brought that kid into the racist movement.
Wow. T.J. Leyden, former skinhead, former neo-Nazi, and he's going to be at West Virginia State University tomorrow, 11 a.m. at the Davis Fine Arts Building on the Institute campus. That is a must-see for folks in the Charleston area. T.J., it's good to speak with you. Thanks for coming on.